Greetings, friends. Our subject today is Beware of Selfishness, the acid that destroys marriages. Selfishness is the number one marriage killer disease because it is actually the cause of all marriage problems. For example, financial issues, bedroom sanctions, poor communication, infidelity, and the list continues. When one is so concerned and consumed in their own self, they forget to care about their lifelong partner, their other half. Marriage has no room for selfishness. Someone said, selfishness is not living as one wishes to live, it is asking others to live as one wishes to live. Caring about each other's needs and moods is a basic requirement in marriage. If one cannot fulfill that, the marriage is bound to go the wrong way. The prophet Isaiah portrayed the problem accurately more than 2,500 years ago when he described the basic human selfishness like this: all of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way. This is Isaiah 53, verse 6. Yes, this last age of Laodicea boasts of self pride, self centeredness, self righteousness, self esteem, self glory, self pity, self seeking, and self adoring. Selfishness prevents a couple from growing together in marriage. Selfishness is all about getting. Selfishness is one of the major obstacles to marital communication and thereby harms the marital friendship. Marriage is we and not I. Always think of what is the best choice for your marriage. Putting your marriage before your desires is a sign of emotional maturity and creates a strong marriage. Selfishness is possibly the most dangerous threat to oneness in marriage. It affects how we talk to each other, how we divide responsibilities in the home, how we resolve conflicts, and even how we spend our time. Someone said, marriage is no way of life for the weak, the selfish, or the insecure. Every divorce is the result of selfishness on the part of one or the other, or both parties to the marriage contract. Selfishness in marriage is the first behavior that needs to go when you get married because selfishness will hinder you from becoming one with your spouse. Each spouse's own selfishness tends to be the biggest problem in the marriage. People don't usually think they are marrying a selfish person or that they themselves are selfish. Each spouse concludes that their spouse's selfishness is more problematic than their own. We tend to minimize our own selfishness and remain focused on our spouse's selfishness. How you are being selfish in your marriage and don't even realize it. When we continue to act only in our own interests and not in the interests of our spouse, refusing to propose win win solutions that satisfy both our interests, we will hurt, frustrate, and anger our spouse. We must learn from these Bible verses. Philippians 2, verse 3. Do not out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself. Matthew 7, verse 3 says, And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thy own eye? Mark 10, verse 41 says, Even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. Remember your spouse's incredible value. The more you treasure your husband or wife, the more likely you will be to approach him or her selflessly and sacrificially. As Jesus told us, for where your treasure is, where your heart also will be. Matthew 6, verse 21. Learn to make sacrifices. The ultimate weapon against selfishness is sacrifice. And a happy marriage is often predicted on two people trying to outserve each other. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. We read in Proverbs 3, verse 27, selfishness is one of the major hindrances to becoming one, of one body, one spirit, one Lord, one faith, one God, according to Ephesians 4, from verse 2 to 6. Before marriage, all decisions you took were all about yourself, what you want, where you went, what you did, what you wore. They all tended to center on you. However, once you're married, the story changes. It is no longer I, but we. It is no longer my money, but our money. No longer what I want, but what we need. In marriage, you learn to compromise. As marriage changes our perception and what our values should be, the opposite of selfishness is self denial, humility, and generosity. Someone said marriage is brutal on selfish people. In fact, it is a death chamber for a selfish spirit. Once selfishness dies, marriage thrives. Love is what is left in a relationship when the selfishness is taken out. The obvious signs of selfish behavior in marriage. How do you know when you've been selfish? Look for the following signs. You've ignored your spouse's feelings and interests and insisted on having your own way. You've made demands, not requests. You've withheld sex or withdrawn tantrums if your wishes haven't been fulfilled. You believe it all has to be about you. You think you are better than your spouse. You can't say sorry. You are unwilling to commit to something unless it's perceived to be personally beneficial. Being unwilling or unable to take criticism or hold space for differing opinions, the so called my way or the highway mindset. You only care about yourself and your happiness. You are controlling. You don't like to give or share with your spouse. For example, giving praise. You are selfish if you have things that belong only to you in marriage, things that your spouse must not have access to, whether it's gadgets, PIN codes, passwords, funds, or even the little things you have to hide away. You have to hide away so that your spouse won't use them or enjoy them. Even food, you find it difficult to compromise. You blame your spouse for everything that goes wrong in marriage. When you realize forgiving others is difficult for you, consider yourself as being selfish. You think your spouse's feelings matter less than yours. The harmful effects of selfishness in marriage. It creates hurt feelings, disrespect, and resentment in the marriage. It causes communication issues and brings unwanted stress. It escalates small, solvable, and trivial problems into heated arguments. Selfishness breaks teamwork. A house divided will not stand. Matthew 12, verse 25. It's a subtle level of selfishness when you don't pray together, enjoy intimacy in prayer, and in reading the Bible or listening to sermons together. It affects your happiness in marriage. Selfishness causes you to be addicted to your cell phone and more married to Wi Fi more than your wife. It makes you more on your habits than on your hobby. It's a sign of selfishness if you don't have your spouse's pictures on your phone or even old gallery archives. All your profile pictures are about you alone. Remember, you are married. It prevents you from thinking the best about your spouse in marriage. It prevents a couple from growing together in marriage. It prevents the building of trust and loyalty in marriage. Selfishness deforms your marriage, but selflessness transforms it. Selfishness drains your marriage, but selflessness fills it. Selfishness breaks your marriage, but selflessness builds it. Selfishness ruins your marriage, but selfless teamwork runs it. You won't grow in your marriage, you'll become stagnant. It's a sign of selfishness when you're always the one to be persuaded in all things. You want to be felt. You don't show interest in your spouse's good work or efforts, though you privately acknowledge it. You play expensive and hard to please. Yet when they correct you, you take it as an attack. You react in sanctioned behavior to prove to them you can't be treated that way. You are selfish if you're always feeling superior in standards, in background, and in contribution to the marriage. Each partner has a unique contribution and a role that must not be compared to the other. You are selfish if you always feel like your spouse was so fortunate to have you. You feel like it was a favor for them to marry you. You are always mentioning the what ifs or how you could have been better married to someone and maybe you could have come close to something better. You are selfish if you're always threatening to divorce. You are selfish if you always feel like you are the messiah of the marriage. All things are about you, through you, and for you. You alone hold the marriage. I know there are valid reasons for such emotions, but all these issues can be handled in a better way and approach. A well known story catches the pain of the human dilemma when it compares relating to each other to the predicament of two porcupines freezing in the winter cold, shivering in the frigid air. The two porcupines move closer together to share body heat and warmth. But when their sharp spines and quills prick each other painfully, they move apart. Victims once more of the bitter cold around them, soon they feel they must come together once more or freeze to death. But their quills cause too much pain and they have to be part again. Many marriages are just like that. We can't stand the cold, but we desperately need to learn how to live with sharp barbs and quills that are part of the coming together in oneness. Love, selflessness, empathy, and tolerance will teach you how to project your pricky traits in your warm, close hearted relationship of marriage. How to become less selfish. How to become less selfish. Recognize your selfishness. Become a good listener. Listen to what your spouse is saying. Put yourself in your spouse's shoes. Think about how your spouse would feel under the circumstances. Try putting your needs last. Support your husband or wife, even if it means giving up something you really want to do. Be open and honest with your spouse. Don't hide your thoughts or actions. Avoid criticizing and blaming your spouse. Blame causes the attacked partner to put up walls of protection, and these walls keep love out. Engage in some give and take. Selflessness doesn't mean abandoning yourself, neglecting yourself, or forfeiting your needs and ambitions. There's a balance in all things. You can together navigate into a marriage fulfilling path of mutual satisfaction and happiness through achieving the true selflessness of oneness in love. Overcoming selfishness is not a one sided battle. Each partner must go to the mirror and identify it. Log off selfishness in their eye before they raise issues about the mote in their spouse's eye. Then, together in love without the victim mentality or selfishness in handling selfishness, the couple can march together in forgiveness and tolerance into marriage heights where no selfishness winds blow, a land of perfect love. Overcoming selfishness requires a thorough marriage, a field examination to deweed all triggers of selfishness, mannerisms, and behaviorism that cause your spouse to have no option but to selfishly build a shell around them so as to survive your pricky natures. Yes, it's a two-way approach to disarm both the trigger and reactions that feed this monster. Create a love saturated atmosphere of teamwork, acceptance, trust, transparency, selflessness, forgiveness, togetherness, praying together, planning together, and spending quality time together and rejoicing together. God bless you.